What is good, Mexit planners? If you're moving to Merida, Mexico, or already living in Merida, Mexico, you know how difficult it is to rent a home or to find a home to live in Merida. So today I'm gonna give you 3 things that you absolutely must do before you put down those 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 security deposits that they're gonna ask you for. Let's go. Yo, thank you guys so much for everybody that subscribed to this channel. I really appreciate it. You're helping this channel grow, and I appreciate you watching all this content that I'm producing every single week. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do me the honor of subscribing so you're notified as soon as we post new content. Thank you very much. So let's get into it. Let's talk about finding an apartment or finding a house here in Merida, Mexico. It is difficult. It is not the easiest thing, but yet it's the first thing that we have to do. And so many people have so many questions about it. I've done a number of videos on how to find a place, the top 10 things that you need to do for long-term rentals here in Merida, Mexico. I'll link to both of those here in the video above. But today I want to tell you about 3 things that you really need to do before you rent a house in Merida, Mexico. And these 3 things no one's talking about. So I thought I would make a video to share them with you. Let's start with number 1. So in my video, the top 10 things that you need to know about a long-term rental here in Merida, Mexico, which I'll link to above, I talk about one of the most important aspects of finding a place is location, and landlord. And I've said this in a number of places on my blog at mexitplans.com, as well as in other videos. But the landlord will absolutely make or break your experience with finding a home. A friend of mine who I just helped, look at multiple houses with, as she was going through the process of finding a home, found a house that she fell in love with, that she really liked this house and was really ready to pull the trigger and just kind of wanted our feedback in terms of, is this the right thing to do? And what happened by coincidence, I happened to remember that a friend lived in that area because I bought a day bed, a pool bed from them. And I remember having the delivery driver go and told them the address of where to go. So it happens that the friend that I bought the day bed from actually was the previous tenant in this house that she was about to pull the trigger on. Now here's the thing, right? So I called up that friend that I bought the day bed from, and we had a discussion about why they left. And this is the point that I want to make. Tip number 1, ask why the previous tenant left. Whatever information they give you is going to be telling one way or the other. Right? Basically, it all boiled down to that there's a dispute between the tenant and the landlord of a problem that really, in my opinion, the landlord should have addressed. Now, I will tell you that, it's things like that that make all the difference, because this landlord probably didn't give back any deposits, right? And when you first rent a place, you're going to put down, at a minimum, first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. And so I can bet that, they were probably out those deposits. That's the equivalent of at least 3 months of rent that they were probably out of their deposits because of this dispute. The other thing is it also informed the new person that was going to rent the place as to, I don't know if you want to jump into a relationship with a landlord that refused to fix something that was inherently wrong with the services of the house, right? What's typical here is that most landlords will give you 30 days to decide, to figure out if there are any things that are wrong with the house. And most good landlords will fix those things. Anything above and beyond that, if it's not the infrastructure of the property, the plumbing, the roof, etc., then you're typically going to be responsible for. So if a toilet goes out, you're responsible for that. If a faucet breaks, you're responsible for that. But if the roof leaks or if the water service to the house is defective in some way, I would expect my landlord and other good landlords I've had, I expect them to come and fix those issues, because those are problems inherent to the house. So long story short, the new person, the new prospect, my friend, decided not to rent this house. That is tip number one. Make sure that no matter what the property looks like, where the property is, that you kind of get a sense of who you're renting from, because that landlord will make or break your experience. All right, so this next tip, tip number two, is one that I got actually from a friend of mine, Kelly McRae. Go and check out Kelly's YouTube channel. It's Kelly McRae, and check out A Slice of Kelly's World. This tip number two is try to check out a house when it's raining. That sounds crazy, but one of the things that will tell you, two things, is one, if you see a place when it's raining and you're walking through the house, you'll know if there's any leaks or water issues, right? The other thing that I suggest is if you see a house right after it rains, you will also be able to tell if there's any flooding on the streets. Last year was a crazy year of historical rains here in Mérida, Mexico. We had, I think, 3 or 4 tropical storms blow through. One, San Cristobal, set on the city for several days and dumped rain like you wouldn't believe. And so people that had, flooding issues, there was floods or flooding issues in places that had never seen flooding before. A funny story is there's 2 malls that are located here. One is called the Harbor and the other one's called La Isla, or the Island. And both of those brand new buildings, brand new facilities, commercial buildings, had underground parking. Well, that was not such a good idea in a 100-year flood event where all this water, the water tables filled up in Mérida, and so all the water went down to the parking decks, and many of those parking decks were underwater for months. The key thing to know is that 2 things. One is the buildings here are made of concrete and tile. So the floors are all tile, the buildings are concrete, and the homes here are made of that construction. And then 2, it's a high humidity area. And so even without water or flooding, these homes, if they're not sealed properly, are prone to mold, which they call mojo here. Now, the local folks don't see much of an issue with that because they're just used to dealing with it. It's the tropics, it's high humidity. They're like, yeah, just wipe that mold right on off. But if you're, from the north and you haven't experienced, what the humidity and that type of situation, it may cause respiratory issues. It is important that you understand how your home, is able to, get rid of moisture as well as to maintain its freshness so that mold doesn't grow in your cabinets and things of that nature. We went away for, I think it was about a week, and I put my camera bag underneath a cabinet, and the cabinet was shut and all the doors and windows were shut. Well, I came back and that camera bag was covered in mold. So it is important that you keep things open and airy, and when it rains that you understand if there's any water leaks or moisture issues within the house. Also, one of the things you'll notice here is that streets will flood, particularly in Centro, because the streets are flat. Things tend to get in the gutters, and trash gets in the gutters and fills up the gutters. And then when it rains, it just becomes a lake. I've literally seen video of people kayaking down the street in Centro, being kind of funny, but that's how much water comes into some of the houses. My first experience with Airbnb here, June of 2019, it rained super hard in the evenings. This was, during the rainy season. So in the rainy season, it typically rains, at some point, at some place in the city every single day. And so between like 3 and 5, it's gonna rain. And during that time, I think it was my first night or second night here at the Airbnb, I noticed that it rained, and I was like, man, that's a lot of water outside, in the street. And as the cars would come by and drive down the street really slowly, they would create this wake of water that was ultimately spilling over the barrier that was in front. That should have been my first indication that, maybe there's going to be some water in here, is that there was a high barrier getting into the property. But the water spilled over the barrier and was really into the front room. It was about 1 inch deep in the front room of the house. And so I called the Airbnb owner, and they reached out to the neighbor who came over. He had this little whole squeegee situation, which I'd never seen, a floor squeegee. He squeegeed the water out, mopped it up, and got it all dry with towels and was on his way. So they're prepared for, you know, things of that nature. Water isn't too big of an issue here unless it's catastrophic or, you know, 100-year flooding events like we had last year. So try to see if the streets are flooded. Try to see if there's water issues in the house. And thirdly, try to see if there's moisture. And you can do all of those things if you're able to visit a home after it rains. So that is tip number 2, try to visit a home after it rains. All right, so tip number 3, when trying to find a house or find an apartment to rent in Merida, Mexico, is to visit that location as many times during the day and night as possible before you put down your deposit. So here's why. In Merida, Mexico, you can have everything from a business next door to an apartment building inside of a residential community. It seems to be kind of, you know, no holds barred, right? So many places will have Cocina Económicas located right next to them, particularly if you're in Central. You might have a house that's a kitchen or a restaurant during the day, and at night it's just someone's house. It is important that you understand what's going on in that neighborhood at as many times of the day and night as you possibly can. A good example is our first Airbnb in Santiago was really, you know, off of a non-bus street, so it was a pretty quiet street, and it was in a pretty quiet area. But on the weekends, I'm talking about Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there was a cantina probably one street over or probably backed up to that Airbnb, and they turned up all night until 2, 3 in the morning every weekend. And so you either roll with the flow or you didn't. The other thing that's a really big issue here are dogs, right? My neighbor right now has 6 dogs next door, 2 doors down. But anytime somebody walks down the street, particularly early in the morning, the runners, the joggers, etc., those 6 dogs go off and they're all day long. So unfortunately, I've seen or heard far too many times where there's a dog outside and they're just going at it while the owner is away at work. That can be a problem. And so you kind of need to understand, you know, in the morning, in the evenings, at night, what's happening around you in your particular neighborhood. The second house that we had in Merida, Mexico, we absolutely loved. It was a great location, but right next door was an apartment complex. And those young fellas that lived in that apartment complex, they would, you know, turn up on the weekends. And so it was either I bobbed to their music, you know, but if I was planning to go to bed before midnight, I can almost be sure that I needed to shut all the doors, all the windows, turn the AC on to kind of drown out some of the music. And there were times where they went to 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So know the location, drive it, visit the home multiple times before you put down a deposit at different times of the night to kind of understand what's going on in that neighborhood before you rent an apartment or before you rent a house here in Merida, Mexico. All right, if you've moved into a place here in Merida, Mexico, or in Mexico in general and had some experience with one of these situations with either a bad landlord or noisy neighbors or mildew or mold, let me know. Leave me a comment below and let me know what your experience has been like renting a place here in Mexico. All right, if you've enjoyed this video, do me a favor and press that like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring that bell. When you ring that bell, you'll be notified of new content that we created. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. I really appreciate it. Until next time, Mexiplans Monty, I'm out.